Hello, this is Socially Triggered, and this video is going to be on Jordan Peterson and my problems with Jordan Peterson and with the modern interview. If you ever listen to Jordan Peterson, one of the things you'll quickly notice is that he's almost incomprehensible because he'll just go into these long-winded explanations on any particular topic. And it's, if you really sort of sit down and kind of try to work through what he's saying, you can understand it, but it's very convoluted, and his writing is no different. So why is it? And I'm going to give a defense for Jordan Peterson, that I believe his situation is brought on by his experience. That basically he's always been under sort of attack by people who disagree with him, that are actively trying to misinterpret the words that he's saying. So this leads to the current problem in our society, where people are deliberately trying to misunderstand each other. And when you have that situation where people are not trying to understand each other, they don't. It's just that simple. It's like a conversation is like crossing the road. And a friend of mine, we were talking about this very topic, and we were saying, well, having a conversation is like kind of like crossing the road. And when you cross the road, you look both ways, and you walk across when it's safe. And a conversation is kind of like that. You make sure that you're saying the right things, so you look both ways, and then you cross the road. You make the statement when it's safe to talk, when it's your turn to speak, or when you feel like you can really convey those ideas correctly. So that's a basic conversation. Now, within that basic conversation, though, there's traffic on that road. There's cars that are coming towards you, and as a pedestrian, you expect those cars to stop. And that's like the conversation. That when you speak, you expect the person that you're speaking with to stop and listen, and that they're not going to try to mow you down, and they're going to hear you out and try to actually engage with you. They're going to help you across the street, basically, so you can make that connection with them, because it's a dialogue. Conversations are not one-sided. They're a dialogue. They're two people working together. So to take this analogy to Jordan Peterson, he's basically looking both ways. He's looking up and down as well. And he has these cars that are deliberately trying to run him over. So he can't cross the street ever. So he's kind of trying to navigate around the street in order to get to the other side. And that navigation can be painful sometimes to watch and listen to, and to read. It just can be overwhelming. So it's sort of like, let's say you say, oh, like you take a very simple statement. Look at the beautiful sun in the sky. Okay, well, sounds like a very simple thing to say. Now, what Jordan Peterson has to say, because everyone's trying to misinterpret him, is, well, that I'm referring to a sun, meaning the star, and the star is not, no, it's not in the sky, but we perceive it in the sky because it's actually in space, but we see it, we perceive it going through our sky, and it looks like it's in the sky, but it really isn't. I know that it's not really in the sky, but it's, it's in space, and it's much bigger. It's not just this little thing. It's much bigger. It's much fierier. It's much hotter. So he has to go through this long-winded explanation to say a very simple thing. Whereas when we talk to people, our friends, hopefully, they try to understand us. When people don't try to understand us, it's very, very hard, because you're trying to explain the minutia, the very simple things, and because they're misinterpreting everything. And I find this with Donald Trump. Like, often, he's one of the most misinterpreted persons out there right now. And he'll say something very simple, or he'll say an exaggeration. The problem is he's an exaggerator. Oh my goodness. Whenever you exaggerate, like I tell you a million times, don't exaggerate. It's like, and then they'll fact check that. It's like so crazy. Well, if you misinterpret somebody who exaggerates, it's very easy. It's so easy to misinterpret them. But you don't look at, when we're having a conversation, we have to almost suspend that, misunderstanding and try to understand who we're speaking with. And that goes with everyone, that we have to try to understand the other side. And that's what happens with Donald Trump. Because he exaggerates, if you are very precise in your language and you try to say, well, he said this, and obviously it's an exaggeration or a joke, that's even worse. They can easily misinterpret it, and misinterpret it in a very negative way, or misinterpret it in a way where they're saying he's lying. And they love to say that Trump is a big liar. so it's one of those things. And this is my issue with Jordan Peterson too, that he's sort of experienced this, but unlike Donald Trump, who just says whatever he wants and doesn't really come back and say, well, this is what I meant, because he doesn't, because the people at least that are his followers will basically back him up, and they'll understand. Whereas with Jordan Peterson, he's kind of in the dark. He's left alone, and he's not being supported as much in terms of the way the media embraces Jordan Peterson. He's really a lot of people really try to sabotage him, and Trump is much more able to withstand that criticism than Jordan Peterson. I think Jordan Peterson is a little bit more emotional, and I find that that emotion and that little bit of weakness, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but sensitivity, I should say, um, does hurt Jordan Peterson in his ability to actually just communicate. Because sometimes you have to just say, you know what I mean. you know, you just have to say that, because sometimes going through that big long explanation of something that we probably would just assume, like, and understand. Like when I gave the example of the road, I didn't mean a literal road. Like, a conversation is not a literal road. I'm speaking in an analogy. And we can make those kind of assumptions and try to get the best understanding of each other. And that will lead to the best understanding of the conversation that we're trying to have. So this is something that I've been trying to do more of, which is to give that sort of olive branch to whoever it is that I'm discussing with. I mentioned in a previous video, I have a tendency of trolling on Young Turks. I don't mean trolling in the bad way. I just mean visiting there and trying to, uh, give them other ideas, like give them ideas that are maybe conflict with the ones that they have. So I might say, hey, capitalism isn't a bad thing. White people aren't all racist. And I try to give those kind of conflicting ideas that go against what they think is the world. And I try to do it in such a way where I extend that olive branch, where I say, well, I agree there's some white, evil, racist people out there. But that's true of any group. But to make the assumption that all of any group is a certain way is in itself racist. So this is the kind of olive branch kind of style that I've been trying to do, where I say, I agree on some points, but think about this, think about these other ideas. And I think we have to do that more as a society. And we should learn from what we see when we watch the Jordan Peterson lobster interview, where there's just this real motivation by the interviewer to dismantle his argument rather than actually try to understand the argument that he presents. And I find a lot of conversations happen that way, where people are not trying to understand each other. They're trying to dismantle each other. And a lot of the time, conversations exist where people are really talking past each other, where they're not really trying to understand. They're not playing with the same words even. Like they talk past each other because they're interpreting each word in a weird way, where it really doesn't allow the conversation to be fruitful. So this has been my thoughts on Jordan Peterson a little bit. but more about the whole problem with the modern interview, which is just really a gotcha kind of situation, and the modern conversation where people are not really trying to understand each other. So let's have a conversation in the comments below. I'd like to hear your feedback and tell me what you think. What do you like about Jordan Peterson? What do you not like about Jordan Peterson? And let me hear your ideas. So yeah, let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Thanks for listening and watch my other videos. Bye for now.